Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, guiding you through the trails of Glacier National Park. And every week, we record an episode about our adventures in the park. Sarah and I met working there. We've spent a lot of years and a ton of miles and summited a bunch of peaks together and just want to share our passion of Glacier Park with you and also provide a great resource as you're planning your trip or a hike that you know exactly what you need and you know exactly what to expect, because therein lies more enjoyment when you know what you're getting into and you're prepared for it. So we just hope to be that for you. And today we are discussing a hike, Trout Lake in the Lake McDonald area. A great kind of up and over the ridge hike and descending down into a great valley with some other little lakes, little gems of lakes around, and some views of some spectacular mountains from the other side, that you're just in a place that's kind of hidden is the way it feels here at Trout Lake. It's a, relatively short in terms of, glacier standards hike. It's just over 3.5 miles, 3.7 miles one way is what the sign says. So 7.5 mile hike round trip. It ascends about 2,000 feet on the way there, which is just over 2 miles to maybe 2.5 miles. And then you actually go down a mile and about 1,000 feet to the lake. And then guess what? You have to come back.
Yeah.
So there's a total of 3,000 feet of elevation gain. I don't know whether it's better or worse. Everybody has an opinion, but a lot of the hikes in Glacier, you're hiking up, you're starting difficult, and you're coming down, it's a little easier. It feels that way. Trout Lake is one that's up and over Howe Ridge. So you're climbing, and then you're descending. And then when you choose to leave, you are then climbing again and descending.
Yes. In fact, when you come over and you get on the other side of Howe Ridge and you start dropping down, you see Rogers Lake and Trout Lake, and you're like, boy, the lake's pretty far down there.
Still looks like a
you
ways,
have to come back up.
Yeah.
So sometimes you second guess that a little bit. But this is a beautiful hike. In fact, we had a fire that went through there a couple different times. We can talk more about that later. But in my opinion, the views are much better since the fire. Obviously, it's a little more, the trees are scalded, and but the visibility of Lake McDonald is pretty incredible. And then when you crest Howe Ridge, you can see Rogers Lake pretty quickly and pretty well the whole way down in Trout Lake too. So it's kind of nice when you can have really good views after a fire, I guess. And obviously a fire regenerates the forest too, which is nice.
Yeah, a bunch of small trees. I remember we drove out here in late fall, early winter, and the large trees were a golden orange, sitting 6-7 feet high and just beautiful. So it's, as Sarah said, it's after a fire, things are different and they're beautiful in their own way. And so this is an area where when we hiked it in the past, we've hiked this 5 or 6 times, and it used to be different. It really did. It was forested, quite thick in many of the parts. And now it is, the views abound because you just see these charred, I can't believe how they're 100 feet tall and as thin as your waist, and they're good. They're standing there and they're fine. It's just amazing to see, like huge toothpicks on the landscape, and you almost can't believe it. So in that sense, you have just as much awe and wonder on the landscape when it's been changed as drastically as during a fire, after a fire.
So to find the trailhead, as Josh mentioned, it's in the McDonald drainage here. So if you are at Lake McDonald Lodge and you're at the little gate, the closure there, it's not closed in the summertime, obviously, but right from there to the North Lake McDonald Road, it's about 1.5 miles, and you're going east on the Going to the Sun Road. And the road will be on your left side. And as soon as you take that, you can turn there, and it's 1.5 miles to the trailhead around the east side of the lake there. And it's just a little parking area and a little sign that says Trout Lake. There's a couple different ways to get to this lake too. You can go from the Inner North Fork Road and hike the Howe Ridge Trail. It's a little less popular. It's not, that trail isn't very well maintained. So I would recommend starting at the trailhead where we are right at the lake.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, the Glacier Park is open year round, and so I think you said it that way because the road is closed at Lake McDonald Lodge in the winter, and you can walk or cross country ski or snowshoe hike up the road itself during that closure. And so we were kind of just deciding how much further the last time we did this in the winter, how much further you might need to hike to get to trailheads, and that's the case sometimes. Multi-sport adventures are very fun for us.
Yeah.
So to strap on the cross-country skis and ski from the road closure up the Sun Road to Avalanche and then hike in to Avalanche Lake in the winter, seasonally, it's just beautiful in its own way. But as Sarah mentioned, if the road is closed, you've got to hike, a mile and a half to the North Lake McDonald Road and a mile and a half to the trailhead. So add on 6 miles round trip to your hike. And that's the last experience we had was somewhat like that. So just be sure that you know what is and isn't open when you're visiting or when you're exploring.
And I just want to point out that since the fire went through here, and these trees, they're not very stable. So if it's windy, no matter what season you plan to hike this trail, if it's really, really gusty, I would recommend not doing it because these trees are just waiting to topple over and it's just not safe.
And I think it's a fairly well-maintained trail, but it's not the most popular hike. So you might run across some downfall as we have in our experience.
Yes, we just did this a few days ago. And it's December, so there was lots of snow, and I think we climbed over 40 plus.
That's not an
trees.
exaggeration.
Yeah.
It's up and over, but you're hiking, so be ready for it. Be willing to add a little adventure to your hike.
So this trail, you will encounter 2 junctions. They're hard to see. Mm-hmm. You may see them, but if you do happen to see them, we just don't want you to get confused. So there's 2 junctions. The first one is when you get to the top of Howe Ridge, you will see the Howe Ridge Trail that goes to the left. You want to stay to the right. And it's pretty obvious because you can see Trout Lake curving over to the right. And then as you get down towards the lake, you'll see Rogers Lake on the left and you'll see Trout Lake on the right. But before you get all the way down there, you will come in contact with the Camas Lake Trail, I guess. So you just want to stay to the right for Trout Lake there.
A lot of switchbacks up and down, but that's how you get up and over a ridge. So just follow the trail, count the switchbacks, and enjoy yourself because it's a great trip.
And in the winter, I just want to point out, too, that this is a big avalanche area. So if you're doing any sort of recreating in the park in the winter, to do your research ahead of time and be mindful of that. If we've had a lot of snow and then it warms up, avalanche danger increases. And there's definitely some big avalanche zones at the base of Stanton Mountain, which is where you're, circling around the base of. So.
Yeah, you are skirting that mountain. There's other opportunities around off of this hike, and climbing Mount Stanton is one of them, and or Mount Vaught. And you can, head further on this trail to Arrow Lake or Camas Lake and camp. There are some other things that you could do. You get so far up above Lake McDonald that, Lake McDonald is the largest lake in the park. It's almost about 10 miles long and a mile wide at its widest part and almost 500 feet deep. I mean, this is a place. Lake McDonald is an amazing body of water that you can get to fairly easily. I mean, it's so accessible, but your hikes all around the lake give you different perspectives. I mean, you can see from this trail the grandeur of Mount Brown too, and just the beautiful hike that you could do on that side of the lake. And every time you're looking at Lake McDonald, whether it's Apgar Lookout, Mount Brown, or this trail, Trout Lake, you're viewing Lake McDonald from a different perspective.
It's funny because when you're coming back from Trout Lake, your legs are going to be a little bit tired coming back up and over Howe Ridge again. But I just remember thinking as you're coming back down towards the trailhead, you can see across Lake McDonald, the lodge, and you're like, can someone just come get me? Can the boat come across?
There's no boat. There's no boat coming for you. You have to hike it. You have to get back there. But yeah, she's right. Everything looks so small and far away when you're on some of these hikes, and the view is expansive.
Yeah, and we did it. We've done it mostly in the spring, I think once in the fall, and then we just mentioned the winter. There can be some water source there along the trail. So it's a very exposed trail. If you're doing it in the summer, it's going to be hot, obviously, because you're going up and over the ridge, but it's exposed because of the fire. So bring plenty of water, because your next time to filter if there's no drainage along the trail is going to be down at Trout Lake.
Okay, so be ready. We're going to take a short break, but stick with us. We've got another segment coming right up.
Trees with deep roots stand strong, and so do we. Freedom Bank has been rooted in Columbia Falls for over 20 years, serving the whole Flathead Valley with state-of-the-art banking. Whether you're banking from your cabin, campsite, or kayak, we've got you covered. Freedom Bank, rooted here, ready everywhere. We want to be your bank. Give us a call at 892-1776. Member FDIC.
Welcome back. We are the Hiking Fools, and today we're discussing in this episode Trout Lake. It's not a super busy hike or anything at any time of the year. We've recommended it or explored it in most seasons. And before we move on, I do want to shout out to Flathead Avalanche Center. Our friend Jenny and the group over there, they do a great job predicting these. Sarah had talked about, you're at the base of Stand Mountain, and it's it's a big slope, and depending on how much snow is there, if you're doing this in that season or in the spring, as conditions changes in temperatures, you got snow sheets, one on top of the other, and there are plenty of resources to at least be aware if you're going to explore an area like this of what's going on. So check out their webpage and or feeds to find out the latest in avalanche safety information. But so we're talking avalanches, and then we're also talking fires. And Sarah, you mentioned one burned through here, a couple, I think, over the years had burned through here and left this pretty open and exposed.
Yeah, it's kind of neat to talk about the ecological changes as you're hiking through. The Robert Fire. Well, the 2003 was a really bad fire year for the park, and specifically where we're at in the park right now, the Robert Fire that came through, and it burned, almost 58,000 acres, and it was lightning caused too. So that burned in 2003, and then this whole area, Howe Ridge, burned again in August of 2018, and that burned about 15,000 acres. And we were there. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that. It was kind of sad. We had my aunt visiting from out of state, and we pulled over at one of our little favorite pull-offs along Lake McDonald Lodge, coming from Apgar to the lodge, and we saw smoke coming off of Howe Ridge, and it was just this tiny little plume, and we're like, oh, they'll have that under control. They had the CL-215 super scoopers that came in from Canada, and it was kind of neat we just had our one son at the time, and watching those planes come down on the lake and scooping up the water and dropping it. And we thought, they're gonna have this under control. It scoops up to 1,600 gallons of water. So they were dropping it on that plume, and we thought, there's no way this is going to get out of control. And it was calm, and we drove up and over to Many Glacier, and we did just a short hike, and we were coming back up over the Going to the Sun Road, and there was just the lighting had changed up around the pass.
That kind of yellow.
Yeah, and we had chunks of ash falling on our vehicles right up there at Logan Pass, which isn't too far away from the Howe Ridge area and McDonald Valley area. So we weren't quite sure what to expect, but as we went back down, the entire hillside, all of Howe Ridge was erupted in flames, and they were evacuating Avalanche Campground, Sprague Creek, Lake McDonald Lodge complex area. And we watched on the shore just behind the camp store there, and it was really sad to see. There was several homes that were lost during this fire. They were able to save the historic structures, some historic structures, but some also burned too.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. It gives you that kind of weird feeling in your stomach thinking about it, how incredibly powerful a wildfire is and can be. And I just remember seeing those planes try to take it out. It looked like they had it, and then it looked like it was the effort was futile. It was like a helicopter with a tiny little balloon trying to put out this massive fire, and it was almost hopeless. I mean, but you've got to try, and the effort that these folks make is incredible. But it's just awe. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, big shout out to the Forest Service workers who work these fires. It's a really dangerous position to be in, but they work really hard and make a lot of sacrifices, and lives are lost. But the winds were just super erratic. It just picked up and carried. It was, all those downed trees from the 2003 fire. It was scattered in there, and it was perfect fuel.
Right. Yeah. Perfect storm. And so you'll notice this as you hike to Trout Lake. You're right in this area. So the landscape changes. And as you visit the park through the years, things are always different. That's why we say always go, because you're going to discover something different even in the places that you've already been, whether it's by season or whether there's a change in the landscape over the years, or the glaciers are changing. There's always something new to see, and that's why we're not bored yet. There's a lifetime's worth of exploration in Glacier National Park.
And Trout Lake, so the name, it's a bit intriguing.
Is it though? I don't know.
So obviously you can do some fishing when you're down there. If you feel the need to haul fishing equipment up and over Howe Ridge, by all means, you better darn fish.
That's easy. It's easy.
No.
Years and years ago, my brother was visiting, and we hiked to Trout Lake. He's a fisherman. I'm not as much, but we found abundant cutthroat and rainbow trout there, and I can't believe what we did. The next section is going to be off the record, a quick story and not recommended, but we did travel and we did catch a couple of nice rainbow trout, and we did bring a plastic bag with us just in case, and we did fill that plastic bag with those trout and hiked back out. We didn't know what we were doing. We were green, hikers, and so we rubbed some pine tree on our backpack, like, hey, we'll mask this scent. And we stuck some boughs into our backpack, and it must have been a funny sight, kind of silly, sad, ignorant is what we were. But we made it out and made a quick deal with I was working in the park, Sarah and I, that year, and so we made a quick deal with the chef, like, can you cook these up and we'll go grab you a 6-pack of beer from West Glacier, and is that a deal, and straight up. And it was so memorable and it was unbelievable, and Trout Lake will always have that memory in my mind.
I just remember walking into our employee dining room where you and your brother were sitting in there, and you just looked so sheepish. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Oh, you carried
I don't know what
fish.
It felt guilty after the fact. The more time passed after the fact, the more we realized that was a stupid thing to do, potentially.
Well, just to carry fish in grizzly country,
Yeah.
you probably should not do that.
So, again, back on the record, you'll have any type of adventure you want in the park. It's up to you, and we've had some good ones.
Yeah, so if you are planning to do any sort of fishing in Glacier, I would recommend checking the NPS website for any changes. From when we're talking about it now, there definitely could be some changes, and there's different regulations depending on which body of water you're fishing from. But any place in the park, you do not need a fishing license, which is, pretty cool.
It is.
But you also should definitely know your fish species.
Oh, man.
I'm a little bit rusty with that. Fishing isn't my favorite thing to do, but if you're going to, there is some protected species in the park. So it's important that you know what these fish are that you're catching.
It's your responsibility. There's no excuse for being uncertain or confused about what type of fish you are catching, how many you're supposed to be able to take with you, which ones are catch and release. And as Sarah mentioned, these are often changing. So make sure you're looking at the latest information.
So any native fish in the park, it's a catch and release. So the West Slope cutthroat trout and the bull trout is very much protected. So if you do happen to catch a bull trout, you need to handle it.
Immediately release and handle it gently.
Release, yes, and handle it carefully, get it back in the water. But Trout Lake has a lot of different species of fish. So you got some lake trout, you got the rainbow, you got the brookie, you got some lake whitefish. So it's definitely fun to fish, stand on the log jam at the foot of Trout Lake and cast a few out there. There's usually quite a few swimming around there.
They're
You
right
see them
there.
jumping, and
They're right there. You can see obviously the water in Glacier is so clear. And there's a huge log jam at the foot of Trout Lake that you can, if you're willing, kind of dance and prance out there and see what you can find. But boy, you can just see them in the water.
artificial lures only. So make sure you're not using any sort of bait. And I don't know why you'd want to carry fishing or wading boots up and over Howe Ridge, but just no felt-soled wading boots. They're all banned, and we just don't want to prevent any aquatic invasive species, spreading throughout there. So.
Okay, so that's good. Fishing in Trout Lake is probably tremendous. We're not the experts. Make sure you know what you're doing, but of course it is a terrific place to fish. One other quick thing before we conclude, I want to mention the daylight. Like we said, we most recently hiked this in the winter, and in Montana, in Glacier Park, the seasonal swing is huge. In the summertime, you've got 16 hours of daylight to hike. In winter, it's more like 9. I mean, it's almost half as much time. 5 a.m. to 9, 5:30 to 9:30 in the summer, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the winter. So you've got to know how much daylight you've got when you set out. We're at the 48th, 49th parallel. We're in the western part of the time zone. So plan accordingly for hikes and driving time, and make sure you are in and out of the woods before it gets dark. That's about everything we can say about Trout Lake. We hope you go have the adventure and check out our Instagram page at HikingFoolsMT to see some great photos from our recent adventures, and tune in next time. You can check out more episodes online, and remember to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, encouraging you to always go.